Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mile Manor DDC, and today we're going to do a review of the Spyderco Tenacious Lightweight. That's right, very interesting little knife, and while we're going to do just a fairly normal classic review on this, hang in towards the end because I'm going to do some significant comparisons between it and the Spyderco Delica and give you kind of my opinion between the two knives. And it's kind of a definitive opinion at this point. So, this is an interesting knife. I'm going to get price right out of the way with this because normally I put that towards the end of my review, but I know people are really interested in that, particularly as it relates to these kind of knives. This is a $45 Spyderco, so there you go. That's out of the way. We'll talk more about it at the end, but if you want to just know the price, there it is. But maybe hang in there towards the end if, if you want to actually hear why or if I think that's a good price. But let's go ahead and get underway here. We'll start with specs, and then we'll do a quick size comparison, and then we'll run through the review as I mentioned, sort of classic mild manner review style. So we've got a blade length here on the Spyderco Tenacious of 3.39 inches. We've got a blade thickness of 0.12 inches. We've got a handle length of 4.38 inches. There we go. And a handle thickness of 0.46 inches. It gives us a tip to tail when it's all opened up of 7.76 inches and a weight of 3.8 ounces. Lightweight? But yeah, there you go, 3.8 ounces. So a couple size comparisons. There we go. We talked about the Delica. Let's bring her out here. So Spyderco Delica. There you go. Oops, let me get that a little bit more on camera. Sorry. There you go. And then how about a Spyderco Manix 2? In a lot of ways, this is somewhat in Manix 2 territory. This is a little bigger knife than I expected it to be honest with you. So there you go. How about a Benchmade Bug Out? Very much a lightweight knife, as things go. And a classic mild-mannered Swiss Army knife. So there we go. There's some size comparisons for you. Now let's hop into our review here. When we do a classic review, we talk blade, we talk action, we talk scales and hardware, and then we'll talk ergos and carries. And like I mentioned, carry. And then as I mentioned at the end, we'll do a little bit of a little more commentary in sort of a direct comparison to the Delica here. So blade. This has a pretty darn attractive and pretty good sized, as I mentioned, almost 3.4 inch blade. It is drop point in its styling. It has a flat grind, pretty aggressive one as it comes down from a pretty good height, and a nice satin finish. Now, you probably saw that right there, so let's just get the cat out of the bag on this, or the cat out of the bag, the elephant out of the room, some sort of animal coming out of something.
I don't even know what you are talking about.
This is HCR 13 MOV. Maybe that's surprising to some, maybe not others. That's an unusual blade steel for a standard knife in Spyderco's lineup. That's much more something you'll find in their Spyderco Bird. They're very deeply budgeted, budget-minded series of knives. But it is what it is, and I think it plays into the price and some other things. We'll talk about whether that bothers me or not towards the end.
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
But there you go. Now, this also is a Chinese manufactured Spyderco, so there you go. And that's as opposed to Taichung or here in Golden, Colorado. Well, not here. I'm not in Golden, Colorado, but here in the United States, Golden, Colorado, which is here in the U.S. So with that, it's ground well. They don't use choils, but it definitely, I don't know. The grind's kind of interesting to me on this in the sense that it feels like it's in this permanent sort of arc, right? That there isn't a lot of flat here on this particular knife. It's sort of constantly curving. Didn't bother me in daily use, actually, but I think it's interesting and maybe slightly different than some of their other designs. Now, as I mentioned, no choil. There is sort of a weird little abrupt kind of point there where the blade grind termination point is. I think that's actually also on the Delica. Yeah, you can see that there, just a little bit of a nub there. And so again, you know, for sharpening, I don't know how great that's going to be, but is what it is. Now, it does have a blade or a Spidey hole that could use some chamfering, as well as the spine of the knife could also use a little chamfering. Again, it feels like some sides are better than others. For example, this side of the Spidey hole is better than this side chamfering-wise, and then sort of the opposite of that on the blade spine. But yeah, you know, overall, I thought this was a pretty darn good slicer as I used it, and I think partly is that, you know, it comes down to a pretty keen edge, and I think that's partly because it's got such a tall, flat grind. And you've got a little bit of jimping here on the top for the thumb ramp there. So, you know, by and large, pretty darn nice blade. Not a lot to complain about there. Now let's talk action. So this is a typical thumb Spidey hole actuated knife, right, in the Spyderco lineup. Now you can Spidey flick it as well, which is great. In fact, it was a little hard to do that when I first got it, but over time that's gotten easier and easier, and it's broken in nicely. So I think the action on this is quite good. Even when it wasn't broken in all that well, it was always very smooth. So from that you know, kind of slow roll was just as smooth. So I think the action is quite good on this. Now it's not a fall shut. As you can see, it's a fling shut maybe, but no, or a shake shut. You know, and maybe over time as this continues to wear in, I've only had this about a month or so, it'll probably get better and better, but it's certainly not, by that standpoint, sort of an action showpiece. Now, one of the reasons I think it is so smooth is it is running on, you can sort of see it through these holes, is what I'm trying to show you, is running on phosphor bronze washers, I guess is my point. I'm not sure if you can see them or not, but they are in there. And I think that's pretty nice, especially for a $45 knife with some good tolerances. There is zero blade play, zero blade rock, came that way and remains so today, despite some significant use. Now, it is a liner lock, which is interesting.
That's just an interesting fact.
And I like, well, is it? I don't know. It is kind of interesting, actually. It's a liner lock, which is great. And it's got about a 55% lock up there. So, you know, perfectly fine. It also is, by the way, quite centered. Maybe just a hair to the show side, but you know, nothing I'm going to complain about, that's for sure, especially at this price point. So there you go. From an action, you know, I think it's got a good sound. Certainly has a better sound than the Delica when you compare the two. And yeah, I mean, it's a nice authoritative thwack, and I like that a lot. And again, you know, being able to, oops, failed it there, but that's okay. A little Spidey clip or Spidey flick there. Yeah, all good. So there's you go. That's action. Pretty nice, pretty decent. Don't expect a showpiece, but expect something well-made, smooth, and probably something that's just going to get better and better as time goes by and those washers get nice and worn in. So there you go with action. Now, scales, hardware. This utilizes sort of the latest and greatest of Spyderco's lightweight FRNs, fiberglass reinforced nylon, with their bi-directional texturing that they use. Has the very nice detail of, you know, obviously the Spyderco Tenacious name on there, which I've always liked. They do that on a lot of their knives. Delica 4, etc. This also serves as a landing pad for the clip, so it eases entrance and exit of your pocket or whatever you're clipping it to. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a very nice texture. Some people like it, some people don't. I tend to like it. I think it feels good. You know, it definitely aids in weight, but you know, 3.8 ounces. But yeah, I mean, I think it feels really good. It's comfortable. No issues with the texture at all. And I think it's done really well. Spyderco's FRN, in fact, I think is done better than most in the sense that it's always done very crisply, very cleanly. The type, I mean, there's no injection molding spots. It's all chamfered very well. Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot here to complain about the hardware. And in fact, or on the scales rather, and in the hardware, segueing in, you've got these nice flat pan head screws, and they're all flush to the edge of the scales. I like that a lot. I think that's a really nice detail, particularly on a knife this price. See, you got some barrel spacers back here, and then you've got stainless steel liners. With they made an effort to skeletonize those as best they could, I think, and definitely try to reduce some weight. So, you know, I hope they did. So there you go. That's where this is at with scales and hardware. You have a traditional Spyderco spoon clip there. We'll talk about carry in a little bit. So let's get into ergos. So ergonomics. This knife actually feels very ergonomic. Shocking, right? Spyderco does ergonomics very, very well, and this is no exception. Now, for my hand, this fits very, very well. I don't know if you had if you have a bigger hand, if you might start to bump up on this a little bit. This point down here a little bit, and that may bother you. I don't know. The other point that's a little funky is being a liner lock, and they've done some nice milling to make this very accessible, but when it's open and you're sort of bearing down, your index finger definitely feels kind of the edge where there's that jimping on the liner lock portion. Is it uncomfortable? Not really, but you definitely know it's there. And these seem to be the two grips that I used primarily when using this knife. This does not include any sort of finger choil. As you can see, if you try to do this, you are going to cut yourself toot sweet. So, you know, not a great plan there. As a result, I do feel like, because this is a bigger blade at 0.4 inches basically, you feel a little far away from the blade. Not terrible, but a little far away from it, if that makes sense. I know that's something kind of knife people say, but anyways, it just sort of feels that way, just a tad. It's not any big deal, but it's definitely something that you might want to consider, particularly if you have smaller hands. So ergos, like I said, I give it generally pretty high marks for ergos. Clip, I did not get a hot spot off, but I could see maybe some people might. Clips are always subjective for people. So carry. So this carries pretty well, with the exception that it's, you know, I mean, it's a little bit, it's not a tiny knife. I mean, it's not a small knife. So you definitely know it's in your pocket, but it's also, I think, done in a way, you know, since a lot of people don't like that, you know, Spyderco blades get bumped up because of the Spidey hole, etc. Doesn't bother me. I know that going in with the Spyderco, so there you go. Doesn't bother me too much one way or another. And like I said, I feel like it carried pretty darn well. Get in and out of the pocket very easily with this clip and the landing pad that it is able to utilize. Now, it is not deep carry at all. It does have a lanyard hole, there you go, but it is not deep carry. But you know what? Neither is the Spyderco Delica. So if you're going to knock this for carry, then you got to knock the Delica too. So there you go. And in fact, I think you could probably make an argument the Delica sticks out more than the Tenacious. So anyways, just an interesting little comparison there. The clip itself is 4-way. Adjustable. So you've got right side, left side, tip up, tip down carry, which is great. This comes tip down right side. I adjusted it to my preferred position, but yeah, so there you go. It's a nice thing if you're a lefty. This is fairly left-handed friendly. You don't have the same cutout as you do there, but yeah, there you go. So anyways, from a carry standpoint, pretty good little knife, or pretty good knife as it may be. Now, let's do some comparisons to the Delica. Size-wise, the Tenacious has it beat just about on every level. In fact, you can pretty much fit the Delica within the dimensions of the Tenacious. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I don't know. I guess it depends what you're looking for. Now, it's also got a thicker blade stock. Is it slicier than the Delica? Or less slicey? I don't know. Actually, I think it's pretty comparable, frankly. Overall, what are the biggest differences? Well, you got a liner lock. This is a back lock. This is 8CR 13 MOV. This is VG10. This is made in Japan, in China. This is made in Japan. Both using FRN. Both have very similar pocket clips. I think the action is better on the Tenacious. But the biggest point for me, well, there's 2 points. One, the price is considerably better. The Delica is almost double the price of a Tenacious. And is VG10 a doubly better steel than 8CR? I don't know. Go watch Pete over at Cedric Caneda's tests and see if you know, I don't remember what the numbers, I probably should have watched that before I did this. I don't remember what the numbers were, but maybe it is from a cut test standpoint, or at least the cut tests he does. But from a everyday carry standpoint, I don't think so. Honestly, I really don't. So, what are you getting? I think the construction is the other thing on the Tenacious is better than on the Delica. The Delica is very much prone to some side-to-side play, particularly just because of the way the scales are done. It doesn't have built-in liners. Now, it is lighter, fine, and it is smaller, fine. I think the action sounds a whole heck of a lot better, a lot better here on the Tenacious. I guess my point is, after all of this, and I'll be interested to see what the comments say about this, I think this is the new entry Spyderco. If you're going to get into Spyderco, or if you're going to even get into knives and you're looking for something, or you know somebody who is, this is a great option. I have to say, I'm a little surprised this doesn't get it doesn't get more love than it does. This is a really good knife. This is well built with good tolerances. Nicely done. Yeah, it's 8CR, but you know what? That's perfectly adequate for most people, and especially for an entry, kind of an entry knife, or just an everyday kind of work knife that, you want something that's easy to sharpen, easy to strop back, and you're not going to be out, a ton of money when you've ground it down to a nub because you use it so much. I like a liner lock better than the back lock. I think the Tenacious beats the Delica. And if I were going to recommend one, I would recommend the Tenacious before I would recommend the Delica. Delica's a little smaller. It's maybe a little slicier, maybe, the VG10, woo. But, whatever. I just like this better. And in fact, this has kicked this out of the pocket more and more often since I've owned this. So there you go. That's my mild-mannered take on this. I don't know if that's going to be a popular opinion or not, but it is my opinion. I like this knife. I like the Tenacious a lot, and I think for $45, you're getting quite a bit of knife here. Is this budget? I like to keep my budget about 35 and under, but boy, this is right there. And I think for a lot of knives, you're getting a lot of good Spyderco, kind of ethos. I don't know if that's the right word.
Of course. You bet.
Totes my goats.
You're getting kind of the best of Spyderco in a lot of ways with this particular knife. So anyways, that's my take on this. I think it's a great knife. I really do. In fact, it's one I think I'm going to keep around. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it's interesting. Please let me know down in the comments if you agree, disagree, particularly as it relates to, my comparisons to the Delica. And most importantly, stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to one another. And all the best.